Let's break down what's happening inside of your mind. So I'm going to draw this large circle, and this is going to represent your sense of self. Think of this circle as who you think you are. So this is the place where your brain stores everything that you've learned about who you are and how the world works. Now, inside of this large sense of self are these smaller circles. Each one of these represents ideas your mind has connected over time. So these could be things like right, wrong, perfect, failure, not enough, maybe disappointment and approval. Humans don't just learn words. We learn relationships between words. This is what relational frame theory is all about. Now, one of the strongest connections that we have is this relationship frame between right and wrong. And it's connected to everything. Not enough to enough. Success to failure, to disappoint to approval. And I guess we'd also add another one, imperfect or flawed. So here's the key point. Whenever your mind brings you into contact with what is right, it's also being brought into contact with what's wrong. This is done automatically, so you don't have to think about it every time you do it. Not because you did anything wrong, but because your mind works in opposites. These are called oppositional frames in relational frame theory. This means that when you try to get something right, your mind immediately checks for what's wrong. It's like it's already there. When you do well, your mind scans for what was not enough. When you finish something, instead of feeling that satisfaction, your mind looks for what you should have done differently to make it even better. And inevitably, you go searching for what was wrong, and you find it every time. If you look for should, you also find that everywhere. This explains the dissonance. Your mind isn't evaluating your actions or actual objective evidence. It's evaluating your identity through these relational frames that you've learned. ACT calls this phenomenon cognitive fusion. When you become fused together with your thoughts and feelings and your identity as yourself as context, or your sense of self. You are no longer this larger self. You are all these connections, and you become fused. And when you become fused cognitively, your actions soon follow. Now let's add one more piece here to show how fusion works. So I'm going to write some thoughts that we might have, such as, I am a failure. Maybe I am not enough. Or I disappointed somebody. Or maybe I should have known better. We'll say I should have, and fill in the blanks. Now, these are not true, are they? But these are things your mind tells you are true. These are self-stories that your mind absorbs without thinking. But because they exist in yourself, they feel like they define you, as if this larger circle that is your sense of self is not really the true you. Now I want you to watch this. I'm just going to come in front of this circle. Now I want you to notice what's happening here. It's no longer I'm inside of this circle, I am all these things, but I am this larger self that's before you. This is what happens when we cognitively defuse. This is the space called self as context. Now inside of here is this self as content. The part of you that notices your experiences without being swallowed by them is this self as context. You are not the content inside of this circle. You are the container that holds it. This shift from being in the story to noticing your story is what ACT is all about, and it's where freedom begins. Let me give you a metaphor that ties all of this together. Imagine you've been living your whole life with a compass, but there's one problem. The compass always points slightly toward wrong. You try to be kind, responsible, and thoughtful, but the needle drifts towards worry. You complete something well, but the needle twitches toward doubt. You handle something correctly, but the needle says, something's off, check again. Not because you are wrong, but because your compass was shaped by a belief that right is the only safe direction. That compass doesn't need to be fixed. It needs a different purpose. ACT hands you a new compass, not a right or wrong, but toward what matters or away from what matters. This is a compass built on values, intention, meaning, direction, workability, flexibility, kindness, not correctness. Let's make this practical. Here are 3 small ACT practices you can begin today. The first is to name the story. When that wrongness feeling shows up, you can say something like, I'm noticing the wrongness story, or there's the not enough story, or there's the self-doubt loop again. You're not arguing with it here. You're stepping into the observer mode. You're noticing. Second, you can ask a different question. It's not, did I get this right? Or did I mess this up? Or what if I didn't do enough? Instead, does this move me toward what matters? Or is this workable in the long run? Or is this who I want to be right now? This is the value compass. Third, you can implement a 10-second willingness practice. So this is how it works. When that wrongness feeling hits, breathe in slowly, place a hand on your chest, whisper, I can let this feeling be here. Then ask, what matters in this moment? Then take one small step toward that value. This is how you retrain that compass. As we close here, you've spent years trying to get things right. Not because you're a perfectionist, but because you care. That's a value. You try, you want to do good. You want to be someone people can count on. That wrongness feeling isn't a flaw. It's an old compass doing its best to protect you. But you don't have to follow it anymore. You don't have to fix it. You don't have to try to argue with it. And you don't have to earn your way out of it. You can learn to let it be there and still move towards what matters to you. Remember, your journey towards a more purposeful and mindful life begins with a single click.